So since we're talking about warriors in this current section of this series I'm doing on A Separate Reality by Carlos Castaneda, I'll give you guys another mind hack or experiment I do with myself. And a long time ago I was given a bunch of old vintage and antique playing cards by my grandma, or my family was, myself and my kids were given these cards. Some of the decks were complete, some of them were not all there, and some of them were singles. And with this deck, I built you could call it a tarot deck, but it's not for predictions. It's just for working with ideas in creative ways from day to day. And today, as I'm thinking about how to define a warrior for this series, I drew the Ultimate Warrior card. And so what I'll do, and I don't have to necessarily go out into the world and be a fighter, though I have practiced that. I can just observe warrior archetypes or warrior paths throughout my day. And the cool thing about these ideas is if I practice it today and I notice something in myself or somebody else, even though I'm not practicing it tomorrow, I will have built some perception down that path. And so now I'm going to go into defining what a warrior is, but back in time, because I recorded that earlier and then I got home and thought about adding this for you guys. Welcome back to Northwest Elite Spirit. Coach Brian here, and this is part 2 of the dangers of knowledge. At the end of the last video, it was said that to face these dangers, one must have the strength of a warrior. So I thought I'd define a warrior. I know somebody commented before that a warrior isn't necessarily someone who fights, and I disagree. I think the definition of warrior is in the name warrior. Just like a baker bakes or a cobbler cobbles and so on. A warrior wars or warrior fights. And that isn't to downgrade anything that you got going on. You may not be a warrior, and that's fine. But a warrior fights. And a warrior normally fights for a cause or for a code. And a warrior is normally a protector, either defending himself or defending his family, his community, or his society for one reason or another, not for good or for bad, but just for fighting. And a warrior isn't just somebody who fights, but a warrior is somebody who practices fighting, someone who builds skills towards doing the task that he's chosen. So whatever he needs to accomplish the task that he's chosen, a warrior will train for that and train diligently. And through a warrior's training, he builds up a strength and a willpower that other men don't have. Through trying and failing and trying again, a warrior again builds willpower towards his intent. And through all this training and through all this practice, a warrior is someone who acts quickly. He's able to respond quickly with ability. And I guess one of the issues that comes with being a warrior is that normally a warrior chooses to fight. When there's other options that may be available, a warrior misses that, and a warrior will fight every time. So Don Juan is saying when you start to have knowledge, you'll start experiencing inexplicable and unbending forces. And also that you will face men who will hate you and want to harm you or even kill you. And I'll start with the dealing with men part. When you start becoming a man of knowledge, or a man who can, say, see patterns and predict patterns, you start doing better for yourself in different ways. And this can make other men jealous, and that's one reason that they may come at you and attack you. Um, Also, you begin to display your intelligence, and if that's like the number one thing people are envious of is intelligence. So if you're in an arena and you're displaying more intelligence than the people around you, this could put them off and make them attack you, either physically or verbally or behind the scenes or whatever. And if you are somebody who has knowledge, you can begin to see like the pretending, and you can see the facades that people put on. And this will scare people because people don't like being exposed for what's really going on around them or with them. And then, let's say you're in an arena where there's heavy narcissism, which seems to be a thing nowadays. Like, narcissism seems to be a pandemic right now. But when you are in a room or an arena full of narcissists, and you come in there bold, and you come in there with intention, and you come in there knowing who you are and what you're doing, that can really put off narcissists, and you will be attacked for that. And when it comes to unyielding natural forces, how one could be more susceptible to those things, more vulnerable to those things after having knowledge, I don't know. I know I myself I've worked like as a long line fisherman, so I've been out on the Bering Sea. I've been a roofer. I've been an ultra runner and an outdoorsman. And from the knowledge I've built in going out and doing all these things, I am more likely to be out and exposed to the elements, exposed to these natural forces. And maybe that's how that works, because exposure is a thing people die from when they are out in the natural elements. And then if I think about it on another level, I live here in Washington State, and we have Mount Rainier, and we have the lake here that I'm at, and we have Mount St. Helens, and we have thunder, and we have lightning, we have cold, and we have rain, and a lot of the time we have weather that is gray. And that gray weather comes at a certain time every year, and that affects the moods of a lot of people. And so the moods of a lot of people can affect me if I'm dealing with people. And so that would be a natural force that you do have to contend with here in Washington State. Not only the weather, but the effect on the weather on people. And as a man of knowledge, I can predict the weather in a way. Like, I know what time of year certain weather comes, and I know what time of year people's moods start changing, and I can ride that out and benefit from that. And I think one way that men of knowledge become warriors and then see clearly is through all these attacks. You build a thicker skin, and you build a knowledge about yourself that you can handle certain situations, and you begin to know what's a real threat and what isn't. And so you don't start not having to fight everything that comes around you, because that's one of the drawbacks of being a warrior is your answer is to fight or to oppose everything. And that's another so if you have a natural tendency to oppose, there are people in the world who will understand this about you, and they will use your natural tendencies against you and use something to oppose as a distraction for you, or as a way to draw your attention away from what you're focused on. And I can kind of give an example of human beings who, once you have knowledge, will attack you. And I don't think you'd be surprised at some of the people who would attack you, and even on a physical level. I come from a family rife with drug abuse, alcohol abuse, mental abuse, physical abuse, and even sexual abuse. And at some point, a child of mine could have been abused by somebody, and I realized it, and I stopped it, and I began speaking out against it. And so through this knowledge of what was going on, I began speaking out, Then I gained more knowledge because I found out a lot of people in my family already knew about it, and a lot of people in my family started coming at me, and they would gang up against me to the point where some people even threatened physical violence. So that is an example, a prime example of how having knowledge will cause people around you to come after you. And that's how I protect my family, right? Rather than staying and fighting the abusers, I just left entirely and saved myself a lot of time and energy. So if I wanted to remain a warrior, I would need to stay in these situations and fight, because a warrior needs something to oppose. But once I begin to see clearly, I can see that I don't have to oppose these things. There are other ways to go about getting what I want and need in life. And at the same time, I'm thankful for having faced these things, because they woke me up to the reality, another reality around me, and I'm stronger for it. So I think to break through to being able and being willing to see clearly that we do have to go through this phase where we're willing to fight for our will, and we're willing to defend our code or our conscious. Once again, first let me start by saying I am a student just as you are. These are my notes on what I'm learning so far. They can change. I may learn something new further down the line and adjust. And I would hope that you do the same thing. Read these books by Carlos Castaneda. This is a separate reality. The first one is The Teachings of Don Juan. And comment below what your thoughts are, and not even just on the excerpts from the book, but on what I've had to say, and what you think about not just what I've had to say, but what do you have to say. Once again, this has been Coach Brian with Northwest Elite Spirit. This has been The Dangers of Knowledge, Part 2. Like, subscribe, comment, share, and of course, practice. Thank you.